Can you talk a little bit, can we go in the Wayback Machine and talk about consulting, how you got into M&A and what your early experience was
Absolutely.
with that? Because it's a really cool story.
Yeah, like I said, I joined Electronic Data Systems because I thought this guy named Ross Perot was, an incredible leader. You can argue that he created the outsourcing industry when he left IBM and created.
He absolutely created it. Yeah, and then IBM stole it back from him and tried to duplicate it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, what's the best form of flattery is imitation. Right.
That's right.
And so I joined EDS because of Ross Perot, not because I had this crazy wild passion to program in COBOL and assembler and JCL. And yes, I'm dating myself. But I did do some Power Builder coding once upon a time.
See, there you go.
Yeah, so step into the 90s. I joined EDS, and that was really the foundation of my technical knowledge and interest in technology.
Yep.
And then leaving EDS after 7 years was not an easy decision, but Andersen Consulting came knocking more than once. And I joined Andersen Consulting. And actually, I joined Andersen Consulting. The plan for me was to be the manager of the SAP Center of Excellence, which was a joint partnership between Andersen Consulting and General Motors. Because I was living in Michigan.
Oh, okay.
The talks fell through. They couldn't get to the goal line or the end zone with the partnership. And so, I think, Bob, I can't remember the partner at the time in Detroit. He's like, well, what are we going to do with this guy we just brought in from EDS? And they sent me on an M&A. It was Frontier Communications had acquired all those small telecom companies.
Yes.
So they sent me over there in South something, Michigan, outside of Detroit. And I basically led the PMO for the roll-up of all of those acquired companies. And that's where I cut my teeth, and I've never looked back.
Yeah.
Following Andersen, I had that very short cup of coffee with March 1st, which lasted about a year.
Till they exploded in 01 or
March of 01 or April of 01.
I remember it well. Chicago based and
it's that was fun. I can't believe no one has written a book about that.
I can't either.
I thought of a great title, right?
What?
March 1st, think second. Or think first. I don't know.
There's something good in there.
Yeah. But, I've got lifelong friends that I met while I was at March 1st.
Great people there.
Yeah. And then I went into corporate and spent 4 years at CNA, a director in their IT organization. And I just went back into consulting, Alvarez and Marcel, Westmore Partners.
That's right.
And then on my own in partnership with Damien.
Yep.
The majority of my career has been M&A, due diligence, and post-deal integration.
Yeah. It's been, we kind of stumbled into it as well, and Damien, I think, had something to do with that. So we accidentally did a big carve-out, and they said, hey, you did that pretty good. Help us with another one, and Alvarez and Marcel became a big partner and stuff. So I agree with you. Once you discover it's like a really cool, fast-moving business, and if you have the right type of mindset, you're going to stand above the crowd, and it's not an easy thing to do, but, so good.
And the expectations were high, and they still are high. But once you've been through a dozen of them or more, you don't get unnerved by much.
That's the big thing. You expect to make good decisions while getting shot at continually.
Yes.
Then you're fine.
Yes. That's a good analogy.
I wanted to talk a little bit about how you got started with Wrench, because you actually started as an interim M&A consultant to actually help them get this off the ground and get started, and it was just supposed to be a 100-day plan. And so maybe talk a little bit about what your original goals, how you were brought in, and how you ended up staying for the whole show.
Absolutely, yeah. I think I mentioned I had just left Mylan. I was leading enterprise architecture for Mylan Pharmaceuticals. We had a regime change, and a lot of people actually ended up leaving. I was somewhere in the middle of that whole exodus, if you will. And I just jumped back into the M&A space and started working with Damien, was working with a food processing company up in Minneapolis. and Damien said, "Hey, can you come down to Atlanta, help us with this software evaluation and selection?" Because I've done that quite often in my career, when Damien and I were at Alvarez together and when I was at Anderson Consulting. So I spent a few weeks with Damien and the wrench team down in Atlanta, evaluating platforms, ServiceTitan Field Edge. We looked at a few M&A systems. I helped them create scorecards. They made a selection, and I went away. Went back to my my M&A job up in Minneapolis.
And they were small at this time, right? This was InvestCorp's first.
Yeah, I think they
first
may have been,
footprint.
They may have been 3 brands at the time.
Yeah.
It may have been. I think it was pre acquisition of Berkey's in Dallas.
Yes.